Right, just going to do a tutorial on how to literally sketch in Sketchbook Pro and then render. Right, first layer, I got my things annoying. First layer, I did my sketch, which is this layer. And then what I've done, to better explain this, I've blacked out the majority of the car. Reason is for this, when you're building up your layers, your next layer on top, say if you end up erasing something and you render two different colours, in between, if your lines aren't perfect, you'll get like a part where the two layers haven't covered the same sort of area. So by greying out everything, you'll always have a grey area underneath, so you don't see white coming in between the two different colours that you choose to do. You'll see more as to why that happens later on. But usually you use black marker on here, do it full, and then what I do, I usually turn down the opacity. I always keep that separate to the sketch, because later on what we want to do is just get rid of the sketch and then have a nice rendered car. This is the layers on Sketchbook Pro. I'm using a tablet, but if you use a mouse, well obviously you need to use a tablet for this anyway. So that's delete layer, that's add layer, that's duplicate layer, which you'll see more of. That's how to hide it. Remove layer name, merge all the layers down, lock the layer, merge with below. So if you just click and hold, your little icon wheel pops up. This is my brush wheel, so this will make the brush smaller, just clicking and dragging. But you can also use B, hold B, and then that will drag your brush sizes. This is your brush properties, so you can do slant and stuff like that. So I can change the slant of it, and that happens on virtually everything you've got basically. This is your toolbar. This tool here allows you to non-proportional scale, rotate, and then move. But we don't want to do any of that. Command Z just to undo all that. Right, so that's my line sketch. Then to create a new layer, click and hold, drag up, and then we can start doing anything. So at the minute my colour is set to black at the minute, but yeah. Now what I generally do is I just ignore the wheels for first, just kind of block them in because I'll do them later on. But I use a chisel most, depending on the type of highlight. But it's all these kind of things you can experiment with, like various textures. It was quite good for doing fabrics and stuff like that in the interior. But for the sake of doing exterior, I always use a marker, chisel marker. If you've got this version, you can get Copic pens. That's pretty cool, different colours. Otherwise, just going to use a grey. Well, actually, I'll use a black, because what I tend to do is I black in my area, then I tone it down, and that gives me a tone sort of thing. I'll build up in a lot of layers, and you'll see literally a hell of a lot of layers. Okay. Undo. Actually, I'll just delete that because I don't want that. Right, so what I want to basically do now is, once I've done this, I want to build up all the surfaces to make a decision on what kind I want to do. You can kind of get an idea for the surface direction based on my sketches. So like the little shut line here is giving this sort of direction. You can tell it's got a soft edge to it, sort of thing. So this is going to be, say if I get a red pen and I say my daylight or light source is going this way, that means I'm going to get light hitting this surface along here on this side, top of this bonnet, because my surface direction of my bonnet is doing that. This side is going to be light, this side is going to not be dark, but it's going to be a darker tone. This is going to be a bit darker, and then there's going to be a light spot on here. This is all going to be in light, and all this is going to be dark down here. This whole general area will be dark. This is all going to be dark. It might be a light catcher here, depending on what I decide about the surface, but this will be dark in relation to that. So once you have an understanding where your light source is coming from, and you understand roughly where you want to start putting your colours, it kind of gives you a better idea as to how you build it up. So I know that what I want to do is I want to start adding my shadows. And if I'm going to say my light direction is coming from this way, I generally start to build up, literally just block it in, all the shadowed areas. I always start with the darkest personally, and I block in all the shadows. But the way you do this on Sketchbook Pro, Photoshop is slightly different because you use paths, so you can do more and less layers. But because there's no such path tool, there's a lasso, but it's not really worth using. Yeah, I block it all in, but because it's on the same layer, if I erase, I'll go through. So you have to be careful where you're going to use your eraser. So obviously, I have to be careful about where I want to actually erase. You'll find undo is your best friend on the old Sketchbook Pro. So what I'm doing now is just try to do a nice clean line and using the undo tool until I'm happy with my line. And that'll do for now, because once I've built up all the shade, I'll do an ellipse tool, which is this tool here. Ellipse tool to give me nice neat lines. But for the sake of just doing a quick sketch, I'll just do it by hand because it's just quicker. Then I personally don't like having to faff. I like to just do it by hand. I spend more time doing final renderings, but generally I don't like to spend much time doing all this. Right, so for now, my arm is in a position now, because I'm drawing my shoulder, that's the key thing, don't draw your wrist. Although it's a bad habit I do, but I'm trying to keep away from doing that. Because I'm drawing my arm, it's uncomfortable for me to get to this right curve to do it right. So what you have to do, hold spacebar, this little wheel pops up. So you can zoom in. You can rotate as if you were turning a piece of paper, and then you can also pan. Right, so I want to rotate it so that when I'm using my tablet, I'm always drawing in the same direction. So which is left to right across my tablet. But because I've moved the actual page, it makes it easier for me to get a nice clean line when iTunes doesn't keep being gay. So you go. I mean, you can always reference this back to the actual sketch. So you can click on here and you can find out what's happening with the actual sketch. Are you over the top of your sketch, or have you gone past it? Blah blah. Again, the eraser, you can use the eraser to trick with it as well. I find is not to be too caught up on one tiny line or crease, because you've got to build up in a lot of layers, and I mean a lot of layers. So what I tend to do is I see, so that's not too bad. It's not perfect, but it's all right. So it's not quite clear from what I want to do with this in a minute, but I'm going to make that a light catching surface, so that's positive. This is going to be an air vent down here, underneath the brake line. In case you haven't guessed, this is well, it's not really easy to guess. This is a Mercedes sketch I'm doing, and kind of because I've been looking at the Bio Me concept at work when I've got nothing to do. Right, so I want to create a nice soft here as opposed to a nice harsh crease, although the harsh looks quite nice, but yeah, so this is based on the Bio Me, and it's got this split body work, but it's not the 1+1+1 sort of. Okay, I'm not going to worry too much again about the wheels. No point getting caught up in the details when you haven't even blocked in and designed it. So if that's that, grade it down. But this is your hard eraser, this is your soft eraser. You can adjust how much you erase and the size. And generally, you can say it's erasing too much for what I want it to do. So I'm going to drop that down and just soften up that line to give me a nice soft round edge I suppose, a really harsh line. Now you can never tell by the number of lines I'm drawing. Well, I'm keeping the pen down, firmly pressed, and just doing it really quickly, really repeatedly, just to get a nice soft. So yeah, that gives you an idea how to get a nice soft. I always start off block. Same with here. I don't want this to be harsh because there's no crease intended here. So I'm going to just push down the pen and hold it down, and then just gradually remove until I get to a point where I'm happy. Again, I keep saying it, you're going to build it up in a hell of a lot of layers. So don't worry about too much if you remove too much colour, because you can build it up again later on. It's all about building up all the layers basically. So in a minute that's fairly low anyway. So I'm just going to build up. What I tend to do as well, once I'm happy with what I'm trying to do, I'll merge all the same colours down. You'll see what I mean in a minute. So that all the same colour stays in one layer in the end. That's the hope anyway. Or at least until you're well on the way to rendering. Tone it down. The beauty of doing your opacity down as well, you can see the body lines, which is always helpful. And again, I'm not being too worried about being precise because I'm going to build this up in a lot of layers. And colour. When doing these, try to stick to 3 colours. There's an old rule where you do 3 colours, you do the opposite, so like blue and yellow, or orange and turquoisey sort of colour, or you do 3 colours next to each other. So you can do that one and that one to give you contrast, but you always want to keep 3 colours at most. You never want to do more than 3 colours. That's like a general rule. Obviously, if you want to be a bit crazy, then go for it and try some stuff out, but don't be afraid to try stuff out anyway. But don't get too caught up on it. Right, so I'm just going to be quiet for a few minutes and actually start to block all this in. Start to use some tools, I'll say. Alright, so we'll soften that. So again, using a soft eraser just to soften that. Right, things like this area here, hold space, zoom in, and you can reduce the size of the brush to get a nicer corner, because obviously you don't want that to be there. This is like the door hinge in a way, make a bit of a feature out of it. So things like this, you'll see all these when it all builds up and you start putting colour on, you'll see these weird lines. This side of the glass I'm not too bothered about because I'm going to blacken all this and put the shadow underneath the bonnet. So at the minute, just to get the body work, a nice clean line for the body, not necessarily the glass. Especially while I'm using the dark colours, because the dark colours are basically my base, it's a foundation basically, so be more precise when you're using your top layers, as in like your colour, your highlights and stuff like that. So I'm going to bring that up a bit, get a bit of contrast between the body and the I'm going to merge these 3 layers down because I'm happy then. So actually no, I don't want to do that. Keep this one separate and then do all this onto the layer 6, that says. It's because I've gone through a few layers and did it in whatever. Right, back to black. Now, what I'm trying to do now is just build up the layers again. And this is just my general style anyway. I mean, you can develop your own styles as to what you do. But I like contrast, so yeah, just erase that. I'd put music on here, but YouTube has a bit of a fit at me, saying copyright laws, so unfortunately there's no music. Unless anyone wants to make music for the video, then that's fine. off. I'm going to again soften this, but you begin to see how everything starts to build up from a dark to a gradual fade completely. So although blocked on quite a lot, removed quite a lot at the same time. And the same goes down here. Just trying to emphasise the surfaces, exaggerate it in a way. But you can see there's a round beginning here because you've got a light area. It hits a dark area where the sun can't really get to it, or the light source, depending if it's studio lit. Once I'm happy with that, I merge it down to that layer, do a new layer again, so whatever I do in this layer, it doesn't affect the layer below. But still just building up. You know, I haven't even bothered to think whether this is even near an actual ellipse. Might be quite a handy thing to do actually. Alright, soft rays. Now this is all basic art, really. You want a nice round surfaces, classic art examples, an apple, and you've got your light source. There's your apple. You've got, you know, your light spots here, but your dark spots are generally all this area. But it's a gradual shade. It's a nice gradient. That's what they're trying to achieve here. Because well, for this particular thing, it's nice soft surfaces. Well, trying to be nice, depending on your preferences, what you actually like. Again, you can see I'm just going to do this, and you can see we add layers. And then soft erasing. So you're going to see like a nice end to the actual rear of the car there. Right, so this is where it gets a bit weird. If my light source is coming down this way, because of the positive and negative surfaces going here, it's not necessarily going to be dark and light. It all is all going to be light because it's the top surface of the car. But you want to have a nice transition from an upward facing surfaces to a side because it's quite soft. So this implies that this is a vertical surface. Here it's a negative surface, so this is like a dip almost. And then this is back to a positive surface here. So this is where it becomes quite tricky, and you have to be quite delicate with the way you do it and your approach. Just be sure where your surfaces are and where they end. And I'm going to have an edge on here. It's going to catch some light. Again, I'm not being too precise with this because we're building it up, and like you see, a lot of it's being removed. So you see now, it's not necessarily a dark shaded surface, but you begin to see there's a transition in the surface. I always found it good while I was at uni to just observe and look at actual surfaces and cars. When you just take note of what the surfaces are doing when you're walking down the street, you're looking at a car. You'll see how the highlights flow and move over the car. Gives you an idea as to where yourself when you're sketching to where to apply the actual shade. Again, undo is the designer's favourite button. Yes, something I kind of want. Fade out the edges more than this part, so I want to fade it out quite a lot here because I want to blend it into the same surface for this particular sketch. But this area is, it's alright, it's looking quite nice. Okay, so this harsh line here could be like horizon line, it's reflecting, but then it blurred into like, I don't know, say a sky or something, or a night line. So that harsh against the soft in that one brush, it also gives it quite a metallic and reflective sort of, gives the impression of reflecting something. Here, it's quite a lot of tension in this actual stroke that I did here, so I want to make it just underneath where it'll catch the light, quite dark, but not necessarily building up too much down here. I want to build up the very most lower edge, because that's by natural, that's going to be the darkest area. But literally, right below where it's going to catch the light, I want it to be fairly dark. So I'm going to keep that as quite black, depending on the quality of the stroke. That's not too bad. So then that implies it's negative, then going into a, I wouldn't say it's positive, it's like two negatives meeting at a point. So this, into a new layer. This section here in profile is probably doing something like that. So this area is really dark, but this area is going to catch all the light. And that's what's happening here. Well, that's what's intending to happen anyway, depending on how you read the sketch. I'm going to keep that fairly hard. Get rid of that. I want to build this up again, bring it further into here, but I want to get a larger area to get more of a gradient in. Obviously, the tighter the area, the less space you've got to put a nice soft gradient in, which you'll probably see right now. So if I gradually, you see, you get more of a softer gradient over a longer distance, obviously. But here, I kind of want it to look neat here, obviously. In the middle, it doesn't make too much difference, but yeah, I want to get nice soft. That's looking fairly nice. Although this little one gives like a bulge here. So, straighten that out. And if you're using a tablet for the first time, it can be a bit strange. I found using a tablet for the first time, kind of, you have to change the way you draw it. It's quite strange. I didn't want to blend that down. Pull that down a bit. My favourite. No, merge it in. Right, okay. Do that again. Building up again, as I say. I mean, that hint of a harsh line, although it's really faint, also gives the impression of a metallic surface reflecting a horizon line. And just keep doing it. Just keep working with it, and see where you get with it. Bring it down a bit more. Unless you want to bring it to the point where you can't see the difference between the layers and the way it's built up. I'm going to actually make that a bit of a negative in there actually. This is the beauty of using this software as well, you can just play with it. If you don't like something, just change it. So that implies it's dipped in, it's got a negative. Just a bit of sculpture, this nice bit of surfacing going on. Okay, as I was saying at the beginning, you've got this surface is quite round here, so you're not going to have a harsh line, and the light can catch this area here, but you're going to have some kind of transition in surface and shading going on. And because I've done this as a fairly rounded, so this is the most point, if you're thinking in terms of like CAD software, you have something that's called surface normal, which points the direction of the surface. So if say my surface is doing this, my CAD normals would be saying it's doing that. It's the only way I can explain it really. So this normal here is going to be the darkest, this is going to be the lightest, this is going to be in between the gradient. This is then going up and doing that. So then this is going to be really light, this is going to be a gradient, this is going to be a bit darker, but not too dark because it is the top of the guy and you can still see it. So you've got 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, got about 4 changes in tone there, all in such a quite tight, but because it's a soft. If you've got a harsh crease, it's easy to get away with. But that kind of explains what I'm trying to explain with the light. If that makes any sense, you'll see what I mean in a minute. So this is going to be the furthest away from the light. So I'm going to make that darker, but it's not going to be dark. And then this again is pointing in a similar direction. And then I want to build that up in some layers. And then this surface is pointing the same way as this surface here, whereas this side is going the same as that side, which you can't see over that side of the car. And then what I want to do is tidy this up. Just using the eraser, just erase it out. If you're doing this in Photoshop, the same principles apply, but if you haven't got a tablet, you can just use a mouse. Although it would take forever, and what you do, you use a path tool, and you literally have to draw everything else with a dotted line, and then make that active, then colour it in. I find this is just a much more natural sketching tool, rendering tool, digitally anyway. Right, now, as I was saying, because I want this to be quite a soft blend from that colour to that colour and highlight in the middle, I'm just going to use a soft erasure and then just remove it until I get to a point where I'm happy with it. But then at the same time, this is going to be something you build up in a lot of layers, but the process remains the same. It's just a case of repeating it. So that's okay, but bring it right down so you can barely see it. And just do it again, and build it up in layers, and just do it again and again. So this is going to be darker, this is going to be darker. Again, get the eraser. And play around with the eraser settings as well. You'll find that depending on your style, what you develop, you'll probably leave it quite a lot. I mean, I tend to leave it roughly within this area, and depending on the size of what you're trying to do, depends on the size of your brush. But yeah, it's kind of getting somewhere that I'm happy with. Now what I'm going to do, because the light's hitting where this rolled metal would be, so there's going to be an edge to this metal. It's obviously not as thin as a piece of paper, it's going to have some kind of structure to it. I'm going to erase that so you get this nice edge. Now if you look at anything's got a rolled edge. The shut lines on your car, or even right down to the shut line on a biro or something, or your watches or what, where the two pieces of material meet, you'll see a white highlight when it catches the light. And depending on the size of the strip line, depends on the size of it. And this is where it all comes into proportions and sculpture as well. Okay, so I'm happy with that to an extent. Now you can see that is a very small difference, but you can see that what I'll do, I'll raise that softly in a minute, because I don't want to see it. And you can just about see all that there, depending on what quality this is going to look like. Right, the far side is getting pretty large now, so it'll either be over a few videos, or it might even have to be burned onto a disc if people want to see this on disc. I haven't even checked these wheels yet to see if they're even in the right shape. So you can see now it's starting to imply there's some kind of surface there. I mean, it's not correct yet, but I'm going to build it up, and then to show metallic surfaces, which you'll see in a minute, it'll be with white. So the white will really make it pop. Again, keeping that surface highlight. Now that was all in one stroke, because I had the pen held down. So if I press undo now, that's how much I removed without lifting the pen. So that's doing the same thing again now. So be careful with that, because sometimes if you make a mistake and you've been holding the pen that long, you'll end up finding you'll have to rub it all out again if you don't undo. Right. Nice harsh line as well over a gradient kind of gives you like a highlight or a reflection of something, whether it be a light or a piece of architecture or something that's in the background, I don't know, whatever it could be anything. Horizon line. So that line was shocking. That's better. Right, I'm going to soften the rays now. Although it's got the harsh line, it will retain that harsh line as you rub it out. Actually, it's too big. You see, until you rub it out completely, keeping that, it gives it that reflective look. Again, this is just from observing what things look like when they're metallic or whether they're soft material. But yeah, you can see some nice soft sculpture coming on now. You can make it more intense or depending on what your style is. I'm going to merge all them down now. So that's just one layer. So yeah. Right. Right, I'll carry on doing the black and start to neaten this thing up now. Right, what I'm going to do now is just gradually build up most of the areas now, using the same process I just used as you probably found from the last video. And then as I keep saying, you build this up in a lot of layers. So I've done things that go well into like 150 layers. So don't be afraid to use layers. Those are good. Right, trying to define this side windscreen and side silhouette, where the A pillar's got to go as to where it starts to round into the actual bonnet. Yeah, while you're doing this as well, it's also good to think about proportion, like where the actual A pillar's going to be. And you don't want, so a lot of people, I see a lot of sketches and just go over this, they'll have an A pillar about here, side of the guy here, and it's about 3 feet worth of body before the A pillar starts. Whereas if you keep your perspective lines, you can see that if I start my A pillar there, there's the car, that comes down, that comes down. This is the distance on this particular sketch, but it's the actual distance between here and here is pretty much the same. It's the shoulder of the car, basically. So bear that in mind when you're doing your sketches. It's good practice to take note of where you're drawing your apron and your doors and your proportions. Obviously, it's something that practice makes perfect. Again, with your line work as well, try and keep a nice, solid, clean line. I know it's difficult. I still find it difficult, but practice makes perfect. And keep on sketching, really. I sketch every single day. Not a day goes by where I don't sketch. So keep on practicing. I'm just tidying this windscreen up now. Get an idea of. So at the minute, this is what that's saying my A pillars there, which is just about on the most. It's a wide surface to say that all this is the shoulder. So I don't want to have it that far forward. I'll bring it back to about here. And then this is saying it's quite a vertical windscreen. It's clearly not a vertical windscreen, so it's quite sweeping back. So yeah, somewhere about there looks about right. Ish. I suppose someone else can criticise it. Please do leave feedback if you think I need feedback myself. Criticism's always a good thing. Never shy away from criticism, always want to improve. That's my motto. And friends are usually the worst because they'll take the mick. Or even partners, depending on your status. Yeah, so I'm trying to maintain this like white highlight I did earlier, but you can emphasise that later on with like a white marker or a white airbrush. Because this is the vertical side of the actual car, with obviously it's the side windscreen, it's the opposite side to the light direction of here. So it will be light, obviously, because it's glass, but for the sake of a sketch, I usually black things out. It means you have to spend a lot of time drawing in the interiors, which is great for final renderings, but for the sake of rendering a sketch, it can take forever. So what I'm doing here is the shadow where the bonnet runs up into the actual windscreen, but because of the design, the actual bonnet is split quite early on, but this implies you've got the bonnet creating a shadow over the windscreen. Oh boy, down here you don't really see, don't you? Unless it's about 3 feet in the air. Right, so that gives you an idea that this bonnet is above the glass. which is always good to have a nice bit of sculptural surface going on. Again, build it up in layers, don't be worried about building it up. Emphasise some sections that you can see further into or something. Use your artistic eye. And like I said earlier, if you're feeling like you want to change something, or you think a certain area looks empty or boring or too much, too little, you can always just remove material and colour, which is always good. So just play around with it. Yeah, so you can see there's a definite transition between glass and metal there. And right, this on this particular sketch isn't necessarily the C pillar. It is a C pillar, but this isn't necessarily vertical. If you follow the side of the car, the actual glass window ends there, but this is actually the door hinge that pops up the rear hinged gull wing. So I don't want to keep this as black as this down here. And this, because it's glass as well, this is all going to be light, that's all going to be dark. So I'm going to start blocking all this in now. Actually, what I'll do, I'll block the whole thing. This will be where you start to see the benefits of graying out the very first layer now. Because if you zoom in, you'll see where things don't quite match up. So this is where that would be white if you haven't grayed that layer in, so you just see white. Which is not so bad when you're doing this, but when you start using colour, you'll then see what I mean, which we'll get to. Let's just tidy this up a bit. It's a bit all over the place. For the sake of a sketch, I haven't really put much thought into how this is feasible, but the idea of this, the door is separate to the glass. The glass goes back, and then kind of like a petal motion, that two petals, they move together but they're not joined together. If that even makes any sense. Probably not. Alright then, because I've blocked all that in, I can reduce that and it gives me a nice matte. Emphasise this area, which is negative. Just build it all up. And then what I'll do, I'll edit this down to fit it on YouTube or something, or take the sound off and just speed it up. But what I'll do, if someone wants it, get in touch and I can put it on a memory stick or something like that. it's going to be a huge file. I mean, currently it's really like 26 gig, so it's pretty large, but I'll put it into some software and sort that out. I don't know what, I just went around that whole window stupidly. Let's go. Yeah, I'm sitting here for hours doing this. Right. So you can begin to see where the actual frame of the door and it's starting to build up. Emphasise this a bit. Emphasise that. Let's just work out what I'm going to do. Right, I'm going to have a vent or something in here and black all that out. Move it back to this line here. Also get a bigger razor to remove the bulk that you don't want. Oops. You see, that was one stroke. I do that out of habit, as opposed to just doing that in individual strokes. Well, let's soften that out a bit. So, something again. What I'm going to do, I'm going to place my bright light in there, I think. Alright, I want to get between the body and the glass, I want a defined line, so you can see from the sketch this is like a lip. Start chucking that in there now. So it's going to be the same on this side. It just helps define the surfaces as well. Makes the bodywork pop. And bear in mind this, the direction in which your shadows will fall will follow the surface and the contours of the actual bodywork. So if you've got a curved surface, it's going to be a curved shadow. If it's a flat surface, it's going to be a flat line. Bear that in mind when you're doing your shadows, otherwise it'll look weird. Right, okay. This jump around is quite blank, so I might have the light go, so through there maybe. Give me something interesting shape wise. Block that in. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Now, if you look at the centre line of a car, centre line of the glass is between these two, which means that is there. The bottom of the car is down here somewhere. So this here is going to go into this negative space. So it's going to come off here. So you're going to see the bright light on the opposite side. About there. Looks about right. That's something to bear in mind when you're doing all this, keeping everything in perspective. And this is what I'll start talking about layer effects now. Something like that. I want it to be a hole where it meets that surface, which is down in here. Right, just so I can see what this sketch is like underneath from the layer beneath. Try and do this in as fluid a stroke as possible. Get rid of all the excess. Wait for this catch up to be a bit laggy again as it's recording a video at the same time. No, it's not a bit too good there, to be fair. Right, let's talk layer effects. You especially notice this with colours. To give you an idea as well, I'll do some white somewhere. Right, do that. And do a white highlight here, just to give you an idea. Right, if that, you can better see the effect this has. Just get rid of all that. It's not actually white, you can actually see it. Right, anyway. This is where it starts to get interesting because you can see this shape start to come out a bit more with the white. If you look in your layer, you've got your opacity. This allows you to move the layer up and down, and this little wheel, if you click and hold, you've got these effects and lock. Lock transparency means if you lock the layer, and you then get, say, a brush, and say you want to do colour, it will only colour on the pixels that are being coloured. If that makes sense. So like, so let's say you lock it. To unlock it, you just do the lock again. This is normal blend mode. This is add, as you can read, multiply and screen. Multiply makes everything transparent, so white will disappear. And then a multiply basically adds up all the layers that are beneath it. Screen just kind of lightens over the same tone. Add blend does a similar thing, but the multiply is quite useful for building tone and shade. So for you get a nice gradient sort of thing, but the white will disappear. So if you put that back to normal, the white appears again. But say if I put that to multiply, you'll notice the line. It's hard to explain. I haven't really done anything that needs multiplying. Right, actually, if I put that above, what's this one doing? If I multiply that one, no difference. I'll move it down. Alright, ignore that. So basically multiply makes things beneath it visible. So you can see your sketch and stuff like that. But it will make white disappear because it makes white become an alpha, like transparent almost. To get perfect white, which is this area, rather than trying to get this perfect, I always use the magnify and to pick the white, and it comes out white. Just a little tip for you. Right, if I do, say, black, and I do multiply, it's not black, doesn't really do it. I should be using a grey. I don't know why I'm using black. So if I use a grey, and that's on multiply, you can see it build up. If I put it on normal, that's what it's done. So that's normal, that's multiply. So it makes it opaque, so you can see beneath the layer, which is quite good for adding tone. Starting to talk really slowly now because I'm thinking about what I'm doing at the same time. It gives you an idea of how you can build things up and use reds and all kinds of colours. So multiply, make it dark. Similar effects, and they're called the same thing in Photoshop. Above your layers. So you get used to playing around with them and seeing what the effects they can do. Multiply works quite well, say if you scan a sketching and you've got white area. If you click multiply on your layer and scan the sketch, it will remove all the background, depending on how clean the scanner is. So you literally end up with just the white biro line. Quite handy for presentations. Let me just keep that nice and simple. Get a gradient, that multiply, maybe not. Run normal. Start messing around. Well, chisel doesn't do white, so well, perfect white anyway. It'll do an off-white. So I generally use an airbrush for the white. And then the rest what I don't want to be there. This is where you want to start to become careful with your line work, because this is where you'll notice it more. See, you'll notice that doesn't follow the line, so that's a better line. So, and this is where you also get reflections going on. Start playing around with how light catches the surface. Round that off. This is a round surface and soft. Little harsh lines in here. Round that off as well. So this starts to pop now. And fall into the wheel arch. Then I want the wall flat on the edge of the wheel arch as well. Although I'm going to fade it out, but you still see it, so you gradually brush it out because of the surface transition. And what we want to do is create a nice white, but a brighter white where the white hits that surface, which you'll see in a second. And what I want to do is, because this is a soft blend, I want to remove this harsh. Remove that completely. So we still maintain this soft. Soften that edge up a bit as well. Yeah. And we tone that down, the more that'll stand out when you do this. Okay, build up the lines. Soften up. Then with a harsh line is gonna start to see what it's going to do. And I need to tidy up here. Yeah, not too bad. You
How'd the job go?
went right. Right, okay, so you can see where the highlights are starting to come in now. And everything starts to look a lot better. this, I've just tried to build random reflections, and that's basically what I'm doing right now. It's just building up reflections, highlights. Trying to get like a different material look to it. Obviously, glass is different to metal. Yeah, so just keep doing that really. Let's just keep doing that. That's really annoying those. Again, trying to keep this softness to it whilst maintaining that degree of reflectivity. And you can really increase the amount that's erased. Again, just keep building it up in layers. It will take a few to get that soft gradient. Do a combination of harsh lines. It's always nice to get this try to exaggerate what's going on in the surface to really emphasise what you want to come across. Nice big highlight on there. Just soften the edges of that. Blend all that in. Keep doing it until you're happy with it. So is that the shape of the front arch? Get that sculpture in. really emphasise everything really. What I'll do is, this I generally do to give it what is you see BMW's at the minute, the BMW shoulder. Bear in mind what your surfaces are doing again, just keep that in mind. So the majority of this one will be like a really, really light grey. So I want to bear in mind what's going on in the surface. So it's really faded up from here to here, it's a nice gradient. And the computer wants to catch up, cool. Right, next layer. And I want a light spot. Ellipse time, I'm going to start tidying these ellipses on. Now these are handy because they've got crosshairs on. Most you think about it as a cross. You want the opposites to be perspective line is a good way of lining them up. So if I line up along that line, scale it down, and good thing about this is keep an eye on what the wheel should end up looking like. For example, do it line gives you a reference of the wheel. Does it look right? Stand back, have a good look at it. If it doesn't look right, then it's clearly not right. Let's say it's going in the right direction. So I'll go with that. What I'm going to use now is along you can see what the effect is now. It will follow that dotted line. Even if you try drawing across, it won't. It'll only go on that dotted line, which is a good thing. To cross it off, just cross it off. And then rub the excess away. And you can start to see that forming it. Now the good thing about doing these as well, bring it in a little bit. Get a pen or pencil or something, and start to work in your word arches. Someone could do a little bit with it. Move it on a little bit. Yeah, that's about right. So this is just the wheel arch. Just keep scaling it down so you get in between all the lines. Give a nice thick line to work to. Thinner your line, obviously, the more likely you are to go over it and cause yourself some headaches. You don't want that. Right, that should be suffice. I'm just going to turn that back. Now if I do a new layer, the same thing, a little bit smaller, move it to there. What I'm going to do is get a bigger one, make it a bit more of a grey than a black. This gives you like almost a tile wall of the tile. Scale it down a little bit more so this is nice and thick at the top. Scale it back up. Now I want a highlight. Well, that's going to catch some light. I want it to be like a grey as opposed to a white. And what I want to do, you see how it builds up in different layers, kind of like a marker does on marker paper. That's what I'm looking for. Get a nice gradient blend. Grab the rubber and just blend it out. And I don't know what's happened there. So a bit of a fit at me. I'll do that again. Fade that out nicely. Do the same on that side. And it gives you a nice highlight. Just tone it down a bit so it's less white and more grey. That's nice. I'm happy with that. Right. Now for the rim, the metal part of the rim, I use quite a small line, but I'm going to do bright white. You can add a bit of colour like a blue or something to what this will do. It'll make the white pop out more. You put white back on top. So now if I go back to a white now, the white and see that pop a bit more. So that's my rim. I'll get the ellipse tool back. And what I tend to do, you'll notice this from a lot of my renders, what I do, I get a black marker, because I like disc wheels like most people, and I block in a black colour. If I use the move layer, move it down to underneath the black edge, you see that? Now if I bring my ellipse tool, bring that back up above the tyre to where that is. Just make the rubber quite small and just remove the unwanted stuff. Make it a bit bigger if need be, just to get rid of all that. And take the ellipse tool off, remove what I don't want. And there you can see, you get that dish effect. Okay, I'm just going to work a bit of gradient. Just build it up in layers. Get a white. And just fade that out. So the light's catching on that down side because these are dished. So you imagine the centre of the wheel is about here. And say we've got a spoke there, a spoke there. That looks pretty naff. Emphasise the dish on these. Unfortunately, there's no shortcut to wheels, so it can get quite tedious. Nicely rendered in sketch wheels look nice, but they, in some cases, they do detract from the actual design of the actual car. I tend to just keep them quite simple. Same as always, build it up in layers. See, it doesn't like white on the old marking, which is quite frustrating because it's my favourite large use tool. Again, with these, you just want to build up some kind of structure. You want it to look like it's got a bit of depth to it. And just fade out where the light's not going to get to it so much. And a nice grey, so you get yourself a bit of structure in there. Try the different layer effects. See, so it's quite nice. Just gives you a bit of depth. Just down to multiply. Okay, just turn that there. build it up so it starts to become a bit darker in here. Wheels do need a lot of time spent on them to get them looking really nice. Just quickly to give an idea. Chuck a bit of light where it hits the brake, like the brake disc. If you've got brake discs, unless you've got something nice in there, like an in-wheel motor or something. It just implies that there is something in there to catch the light. Just build it up again, just real quick, real rough. If you want, chuck a brake caliper in there and wave at it. Gives it a nice bit of depth. I like to keep this quite loose, purely because I don't want it to detract from the clean surfaces. But obviously, keeping it loose and keeping it messy are two different things. It's a fine balance. Let's throw a little white in there. Put a 3-point star in there. That gives you an idea. If you want to make it a multi-spoke or something. Drop a bit of the blacking. Just so it gives it something nice. Back onto the body. Right, let's start working in this section of the car. Let's get some shading down here. Make this pop. Let's get some gradient going on it. light on this rear end. Start getting some shape in there. Okay. Right, reflections there. That's far too big. Still working on catching some light and definition then. Put a bit of grading on it so you got a lighter spot. Same as before, there are some layers if required. It just helps to define the surfaces. Around the part line of the brake light. It all helps, it all adds to it. You also want to do the same in terms of, at the minute we're on layer 92, so you get a sense now of where all the layers come from. Literally the slightest thing is on its own layer. In a sense, begin to ignore the layers and just keep everything on its own on a separate layer. Don't really know why. Just do it a habit, I suppose. Just trying to keep everything down in time. I don't want to mess around with layers. Don't think that you can keep turning all the page. Maybe it's lost. Maybe not. It's just a bit of fit to me. Yeah, just start adding some sculpture now. after doing it, I think this has lost a lot of its definition. So I'll put some definition back in here. It's oddly not turning particularly black. Why does that happen? It doesn't look very black anyway. Yeah, it looks like you just ruined everything. You've just gone, oh my god, what have you done? Then when you remove, it creates a nice grainy quality to it. Again, build it up in layers, but you get this nice grain, nice surface direction quality to it. This is something I just found out by accident by using software. I mean, not everybody will like it, some people think it looks horrible, but I really like the life it gives the sketch. It just gives it a bit of life. Adds to a personal style as well. Little touches like this will create your style, your chosen way of rendering. So a good way really is find renderings by people that you like and adapt that into a way that say it suits you. So there you gotta be your own. Just gives it a nice Now, if you've done most of this, as I have, in a grey and a black, what you'll find now is, if you want to add colour to this, you'll find if you go in colour over the top of the grey that you've rendered down, what you'll find is the grey will create the colour you like, or you've chosen, as a darker tone. It'll sort itself out for you. So in a minute I'll put a splash of colour, and then you'll see the effect where the darker your grey or tones creates the darker area of that colour you do. Literally you only need an airbrush with it. And the difference it makes is just brilliant. And it also means that you can have fairly consistent rendering. And no, I'll just show you rather than trying to get tired now. So, along there. So if I choose an orange, for example, and put on multiply, and you start to see the effects you can get going on. Now for this, I quite like that effect. I think that's quite nice. I'm just going to erase the glass area. I actually really like that. See, that's what happens when you do things on a whim. Do things by mistake, and it could be a happy accident. You know, it might even go on my portfolio. You never know. It'll definitely go on my blog anyway, along with the video, when I edit the video together. Again, this is the same with what I was showing you earlier. You can see how it's picked up the shadow in here and the highlight. So you keep the tone that you've created with the grey, but you also get that splash of colour on that. And again, just build up in layers, and you might find the slightest bit is all you want, or you might find that that's exactly what you want. You don't know. It could all change. So now I find I like to emphasise a certain area of the rendering. Whoa, that's a bit crazy. It should look like a multiply. Not one after screen. Screen looks okay, but I'm going to remove it off the wheel. It looks a bit weird on the wheel. Remove it off the glass. Then it's okay, I'm using orange, I'm going to use blue on the glass. Get the same effect. So this is almost like reflecting the sky or something. I don't know, it could be anything. Wait for my computer to catch up. Yes, the effect is quite simple, but it's quite nice at the same time. Let's do bright light and say this will make sense in a minute. So he doesn't like doing 112 layers and recording a video at the same time. So you can get a sense of how this works. I'm going to turn the blue down, the blue looks a bit harsh. Okay. Okay, just play around with it. See what you like. And then get really small black. Some short lines in. So we'll have to break. And quite handy actually, let's put this hand in. Door hinge, which is this part. And the quite good thing about this, if you do duplicate layer, then lock that layer, get a white, go over that so that you go white, and sort of flow out in this thing. Then once you've done that, unlock it again, move it. Then giving yourself your lines. Now obviously where it's dark you're not going to see a white highlight, so just gradients. There, down there, and just adds to the render. And that's it, I'll leave it at that. I can get carried away, be here for days. That gives you a basic idea of how you go about doing renderings. That's actually for let's do a shadow on the ground plane. Quickly erase what I don't want or need. Shadow tends to follow the line of the car because it is the car that's casting the shadow. I quite like streaks, so I quite like to build things with lines. That was a bad idea. Let me see where I'm going with this.